Hello, friends. Welcome back to Lessons in Self-Worth. Today is a special episode because I am joined by Mo, the founder and CEO of the Happiness Planner and Ritually. This conversation was incredibly special to me because my connection with the Happiness Planner actually began long before my own professional journey. Mo's work has inspired people around the world to live more intentionally and cultivate greater happiness in their daily lives. And that includes me. My connection with the Happiness Planner goes way beyond this conversation or any professional connection I've had with Mo. I have been a fan of the Happiness Planner for years. You'll hear Mo share her journey behind, building the Happiness Planner and how a lifelong curiosity about psychology and human behavior has shaped her mission to help people understand themselves more deeply. And we explore, I think, one of the most important steps in personal development, recognizing the need for change, identifying subconscious drives that shape our patterns and our relationships in everyday life. Mo opens up about a personal experience of tracing a difficult communication pattern back to the relationship with her mum and years of self-awareness and intentional work that it took to heal and rebuild that connection. And I hope that gives us hope around maybe there's connections that we want to repair or rebuild. And it's a powerful reminder that meaningful change can happen. Plus, we talk about the importance of daily habits, caring for your mood and your basic needs and creating space for that self-reflection. Mo really shares what works for her in the hope to inspire you. And I think what you'll hear from this conversation is just two people sat down, deep diving and having a conversation that feeds our own souls. And I hope that this conversation is just something you can listen to and take some inspiration or a boost or an aha moment from as well. So enjoy. Mo, hello, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited. Just want to begin by saying, for me personally, see, we've met before at one of your events that I had the absolute pleasure of speaking at. But what I don't know if I can't remember if I had the opportunity to tell you, but the Happiness Planner for me, which you are the founder, the CEO, it outdates me coaching. It outdates the professional side of things. For me, I was connected to it as soon as I found it. I was so deeply trying to figure out happiness and well-being and what that looked like for me. And so the connection with what you were creating was just there automatically. And then as I did get into coaching and started thinking about where I want my life to go, having a connection with the Happiness Planner, with yourself, that was like on my vision board. So to sit here with you now, it is, when I actually think about it, it is quite wild. But tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
So I'm the founder and CEO of the Happiness Planner, originally from Bangkok, Thailand. And then I moved to Australia for university. And then after like living in Australia for 7.5 years, I started the Happiness Planner, and then I started nomading and like traveling the world, moving to different countries. Because I guess like since when I was a little girl, I wanted to see the world, and I'm fascinated by people. I'm curious about people, different cultures, psychology. Yeah, so it's literally been like almost 11 years with the Happiness Planner now. It's something that I dreamed of doing since when I was a little girl, and I actually forgot about it, but my little sister reminded me that I told her that's what I wanted to do when I was 10 years old.
I love stuff like that. I really, really love. Something that I just thought was really inspiring when I was researching for this podcast, as I was saying to you just before we hit record, in so many different ways, you seem to be inspiring people through your work and you as a person to live happier lives, whether that was their relationships, their daily habits, their self-worth. But there seems to be this real commitment to you sort of single-handedly supporting people to live a happier life. What is that like for you to have that? What is it? Is it a sense of purpose? Where does that come from?
I'm not so sure where that came from, but I think like it started to click in me when like amongst circle of friends. Usually a lot of my friends come to me for advice,
Okay.
and they all usually say that I somehow am able to, besides like maybe giving them like a positive energy, I also help them see things differently and then feel better about situation. Or yeah, and then that was like many years ago when I think one girlfriend said that, and then another girlfriend said that, and I started thinking like, yeah, maybe that's what I'm good at. And then since when I was a little girl, like I've been passionate about psychology just because my dad's really into psychology. So I grew up reading a lot of psychology books, and I was just always curious about people and like what drives people.
And do you, the people that you come across the most and that the happiness planner helps, or you help in all your lines of work really, what are the common challenges and difficulties that you see?
I think even understanding what the subconscious belief is hard. It's kind of like the first step. I mean, the first step is to recognize that this something needs to change, right? And then you have to find what that subconscious belief is, and that could be really hard. Subconscious beliefs and patterns that have been formed throughout our lives, basically. And it's really hard to see it. I think sometimes you can only see it when it's reflected in another human being or in the interaction with another human being that doesn't align with us. It's really hard to see it alone.
That's so interesting, because what I feel a lot of people are often looking for is to get into a relationship where we're not getting triggered, where it's not challenging, it's not difficult. But actually what you're saying is, well, that's how we see what needs to be worked on. That's how our subconscious beliefs or drives are going to show themselves.
It's either reflected in similarities in the people that you attract, or in the disagreements with people that you're in a relationship with. It's wise to think about our childhood, actually. If some, like, let's say if someone there's a certain way that, let's say, your partner gets defensive about certain things, then it's somewhere in their childhood. It's kind of like you have to dig deep into that, and then the way you communicate or the way you get triggered is also somewhere in your childhood. You have to kind of go back to that, change that, or to improve that aspect. We pretty much have to go back to the root cause of it. That includes healing the relationship with our parents.
If someone's having that realization, where do you sort of say, okay, this is where we go next, this is what we do with that realization?
I think for me, when I had this realization, there were times that I just like dated men and then just ended up like having arguments, like different arguments. And then I started looking at, their patterns, my patterns, communication style. But one of the biggest things that I recognized in myself was that, like, sometimes I said mean things when I'm really upset. And then I was seeing a guy who was very sensitive, and I was like, okay, I don't want to be this way, but where did it come from? And then I realized that I like subconsciously picked it up from my mother. And I was like, go back to my mom. And every time she say mean things when she's just over worried, I try to, make her change that pattern, because I feel like it keeps affecting me, and then I'm going to keep affecting my boyfriend and then maybe my children when I have children. So I asked my mom, like, hey, did you learn to talk this way because your mother was this way? And she admitted that it was that way. And that was like a big aha moment. And it's not just an aha moment for me, but also for her. So I'm like, okay, let's work on this.
Wow, that actually gives me tingles, because I guess something I'll acknowledge there as well is it's a big deal to say out loud to yourself, I can't remember the exact words you said, but I'm making mean comments. We don't want to admit things about ourselves like that, and we'll often point the finger, right? And we might blame them instead. So I just think for you to notice that and own it, I think that's huge. And I don't know if you did it at the time, but certainly the way you talk about it now doesn't sound like you're judging yourself. It sounds like you're understanding that pattern. And I think that's so key, because it's so easy to judge yourself for what we see that we want to change and we don't like, or our role in things. So I think just a huge thank you for owning that without judgment. It didn't sound like there was judgment. I don't know if that's your internal experience, but do you think that's an important part to say, yeah, this isn't great, but this is what I do?
Yeah, and I think the first step is to set a goal to yourself that you want to improve this. You know, because for me, I'm like, there are patterns that I wanted to improve, and my, you know, every time I had an argument with a boyfriend in the past, and I vent about it to my father, he would be like, well, what is he teaching you? What is this teaching you? And then he, like, all he said was that. And initially it was a little bit annoying because I'm like, I want your advice. But then, yeah, now you're telling me, you're asking me, like, what are you learning from this experience? And then, so it actually helps me think about, like, oh, maybe I can learn to be more patient, you know, or maybe I can learn to adjust my communication style when I date someone who's more sensitive, you know, and when I date someone who's more direct, then maybe I can speak differently. So I kind of learn to adjust myself, and I set it as a goal that, like, I want to improve who I am. So I think that's the first step, and then you can, and because it's going to take time for you to change your patterns, maybe like 2 years, I would say. Like 10 times trying, you know, telling yourself, like, okay, I'm gonna be calm, I'm not gonna be trigger, I'm gonna not say mean things, you know what I mean. And it takes time, but the first step is to make it a goal to that you're going to improve yourself, basically, I think.
Yeah, and that is so realistic. I feel like I can really understand this. I guess I just want us to clarify it. You mentioned, you know, if you were dating someone who was more sensitive and you could adjust perhaps how you communicate.
Yeah, I think that must be a balance, right? Like, you know, with some people, you keep adjusting and it just doesn't work. And then you just realize that, okay, it's not working, you know, they have their patterns, you have your patterns. If they're not doing that part to adjust that patterns as well, like, it's not going to work.
Absolutely. In relationships, there's got to be movement both ways, right? Adjustments of understanding each other, and that there's going to be sometimes that you can adjust and the other person isn't able to. Perhaps it's value based, perhaps it's personality based. And there's going to be times where it's the other way around. Maybe we struggle to adjust and they're doing the adjusting. I guess it's depending on what is the situation, how much capacity do I have at that time, how important is this thing to me. But it's constantly kind of moving, and it's okay to adjust and meet a person where they are.
Yeah, but I think, like, as we get older as well, and we've dated a few people, we also learn to recognize the kind of person that we'll be compatible with sooner than later. You know, when we're young, we just didn't really know. We just follow, like, chemistry, passion, whatever. And then, but then now you kind of, like, as you get older, you just, like, you notice different things, you know, you notice the empathy, the kindness, the emotional maturity, which, yeah. So I think you do select better partners as you get older. So you don't need to adjust as much because you tend to gravitate towards more compatible energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in doing the work, bettering yourself, however that looks for you, you do tend to then develop, like, perhaps the ability to pause, to reflect, to journal, to think about, is there a better way to approach this? The other thing I wanted to, again, circle back to, because I wasn't quite done, was, I guess, your decision to, because I appreciate that not everyone will be able to do this or will want to actually go to your mum and say, hey, there's this pattern. And thankfully, in your case, be met with what sounds like quite a very helpful experience for both of you. Was that just a no-brainer for you? You were like, I'm going straight to mum. Did you think about not going to mum?
I just felt like I wanted to have a better relationship with my mom. So growing up, we always, like, butt head, you know. She was a bit controlling, conservative, and I was like this free-spirited, like, rebellious girl. and I always, like, when I was young, I was always envious of other people that had, like, really close friendships with their mothers. And I noticed in myself that when I date people, like, I would love to date a guy whose moms I love, you know, so that I could feel like I have another loving mom, you know. But now that actually, like, my relationship with my mom is really good, that I'm just like, you know, I have my mom. I don't care about other people's moms. I have my own mom.
Wow.
Yeah, but it did take years. Like honestly, like it started off like I would start seeing like, okay, she sent a message and then she unsent, because she's like a big warrior, and she has she had this tendency to like over worry, and then she would send you like messages of concern, which triggered me. um so the first step for me was like to take a deep breath and like, okay, don't get triggered, don't look at it, or and that was the first step. Um and then I started looking at her messages less, and then I start noticing the pattern that she started sending less and less messages of like worries and all that when she's like, hot tempered and all that. Like now I notice that I don't get triggered anymore, and I am able to tell her, mom, calm down, call me when you're calm. But when I was a kid, I would not be able to say this. I would be like, yeah, back to her. Yeah, it did take some time, but I feel like it's very rewarding. I think it feels really good to feel like I have like unconditional loving relationship with my mom again.
So you've done some like major kind of, we were to give it a name, like mother wound work. And actually something that I feel like, and if any listeners have their own examples, I'd actually love to hear this, because I don't often hear the examples where there is like a positive turnaround. Especially with parents, I feel like I don't hear as much about parents changing or adapting, hearing you and having that conversation. So to hear that is amazing, that it can happen. For the work with yourself first, did that start with you? You said that you started to notice the messages were triggering. Is that kind of where it started, or was it therapy, conversations?
I mean, my mom's little messages of concern used to trigger me so easily. Like if she just said like, take care of yourself, like even just little things. It's like, don't fall off the bike if you get on a bike. Like I'm like, mom, I can take care of myself. When I was young, I'd be like, oh, just don't tell me what to do. But somehow I also shifted my perspective, where I started to see like, actually, that's her love language, and I started recognizing, things like that I did not recognize before. I'm like, that's her love language. Or when she cooks for me, when I see her, I'm like, oh, that's her love language, which I never appreciated before. Yeah. And even now, like when she's upset, I feel like, I don't know why. I just started saying, mom, I love you. And then she just stops complaining. And if I had done this when I was a teenager, we would not have argued so much.
I know, that's so easy to see that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so easy in hindsight. What was coming up for me there is the ability to take on someone else's perspective, because there is times, I'm thinking of times with my partner, actually, there was that trigger, and maybe in the past what I didn't have the ability to do was consider their perspective, or even if that's just to consider, sometimes I might have this little notice of, oh no, his intention there isn't to annoy you. His intention isn't that he's not thinking you're not good enough. He's not thinking, whatever it is that my mind is telling me, I can now see that perspective, that that's probably not true. Taking on another perspective in the moment, even after an event, is so powerful. How did you get that? How did you get to the point where you were able to say, actually, that's her love language? Did you do like practical things? Or did it just kind of happen?
You know what? I had to I think like the first step where I really like sat down with my mom was during COVID, because I moved back into my family home during COVID, because I didn't want to be in like an apartment. I was like, I'll just be in a big house. And she was still like the same, worrying, always telling me what to do. And I had to sit down with her. I'm like, mom, I'm not 18 anymore. Like you're still treating me like I'm that 18-year-old girl. Like your perception of me and all the rebellious things I did at the age of 18 that you did not like dating, wearing sexy outfit, whatever, Yeah, I had to sit down with her and be like, I want to have a close relationship with you. I want to be friends with you. You have to stop treating me like I'm 18 years old. I'm like 30 something now. So that was like the first step. But it took, I would say like it took like 2 years, honestly. It took 2 years. And now my mom is smiling a lot. She's not as stressed anymore. I know when she's stressed, even though with other things in life, it will affect you also. So just kind of reminding her like to let go. Like I tend to do that a lot now. Like when she's worried about people, I'm like, just let go. Don't worry.
It's really interesting because when we worry excessively, one of the ways we cope with that is, well, I'll send a message, I'll check in, I'll reassure myself that she's okay or doing X, Y, and Z. And so you were reading them less. At some point, she actually started to do that less, which if I go and put my therapy hat on, what we would know is if she was we would expect that if she's sending less messages, she would be worrying less. And then you're kind of saying, okay, and she's smiling more and you're seeing these changes. Was she doing the work, or was it you changing that had a positive impact? Or do you think, or do you know that she was doing some kind of active work on herself as well?
I think both. She wasn't seeing a therapist or anything, but I feel like every time I remind her, to stop worrying, she starts rewiring her patterns. She starts telling herself, like, yeah, that's right, I should stop worrying. And then she just practices that. And I think now it becomes more natural to not think too much.
And has it, and maybe you've already said this, but just sort of asking you directly, was it helpful for you on your own journey and acceptance of the past and the worry? Was it helpful for you to recognize it as worry?
Yeah, it's worry. And I know that she has this pattern because her mother was like this, and she grew up in like a sort of Chinese, like more Chinese family, and they tend to do like tough love sort of thing. Yeah.
What has come across, and what I already knew anyway, you've done work on yourself that's literally brought up huge changes in your life and things that you really desired, like you really wanted this relationship with your mum in this way. And then that's even changed what you crave with a partner and their parents and things. And I love that. I love like unplanned change. Like maybe we didn't go into it wanting one particular thing, but other great things come from it. What would you say? And I guess I am drawn to this question just based on knowing the projects that you have and the happiness planner. When it comes to daily habits, why is what we do daily important for kind of our greater good, our greater relationships when we zoom out?
How we start the day affects everything, right? So if we train our thoughts to focus on the positives, what we're grateful for, then we feel better, and then everything just flows better. It's just like when we're sick, when we have a cold, like everything just like
Yeah. What came first for you? Was it the practices such as daily gratitude or, tools and techniques that you would use each day, or looking at the past?
That's a difficult question. Yeah, I think it's important to prioritize how we feel.
Yeah.
Because if we feel good, then we have the energy and the mindset to do every other things in the day, but if we're not happy, if we're grumpy, we don't feel energetic, then we just don't feel like doing anything, including doing the work with
Right.
other people, so I think it's the most important thing is to prioritize how we feel, like our
Yeah.
energy level.
Yeah. So looking at our daily mood,
Yeah.
implementing ways to feel better,
Yeah.
and then we have the capacity, the space, the motivation even to go for all the other things.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with that as well. That makes me think of if someone comes to us with a particular goal and they're really depressed, there has to be this kind of some focus on working on the mood so that we can go for the goal, right?
Yeah, I think, focusing on our mood is the most important thing. And I think it's our job to learn what makes us feel good, Like, let's, for example, like for me, I know that if I play the piano, like I can shift my mood like that, or if I exercise in the morning, I feel good. So you just have to find out what makes you feel good and be intentional about integrating that into your daily lives so that no matter what happens in life, you know how to regulate yourself.
And what is it about, because I noticed you've said it a couple of times, the morning. Why does the morning feel important?
Because you start the day, right? If you start the day grumpy, it's like the rest of the day is already I don't know, tinted.
If you had to, shall I say, I'll say top 1 to 3, so whatever comes to mind. Your top 1 to 3. If someone was listening and they're like, "Yeah, I'm really grumpy. I've got no idea where to start," what would you suggest that they start with to look after their mood?
I think they just have to think about what makes them excited or happy. If they just wake up and grumpy, what are the root causes of that? You know, what makes them grumpy? Are they not happy with their job, or the relationship, or like what's going wrong in their lives? You know, maybe start from trying to tackle that, and then if you cannot change that, then maybe change your perspective. Then you feel better about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sort of first and foremost is carve out some time for some self-reflection.
Yeah.
Look at what's actually going on, what's actually contributing to your mood, and
And eat
then
important, right? Eating well, it affects your brains, you know. If you eat well, sleep well, I think you're already like 60%, like you're already 60% like feel better.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like, and especially when we're not feeling good, our basic needs get neglected. And I would say that that is like the sleep, the food. What are my basic needs? And actually, sometimes it can be going back to that. Okay, my actual basic needs from the moment that I wake up in the morning, how am I meeting them, or how am I trying to meet them at the moment? Anything you mentioned, like gratitude journals, or journaling, anything like that that you feel like is a go-to? So you've got your diary.
Yeah, I think I will. Gratitude journaling is great, you know. I think having goals in life is important, you know, because otherwise we just feel like, what do we do today? Like you need some goals to feel like your life is worth living. It could be any kind of goals, small or big. We all need some meaning in life. So that's something that, you know, because you can get depressed if you like don't know what you're doing with your life, right? So I think the first step is to think of goals that make you feel on fire. Um, Getting enough sleep, drinking water, movement, exercising, having good friends that you connect with. These things are important. Yeah.
I think that they're so important. And I actually feel like if I was to even narrow down the key points that you've made today, I actually just feel like, yeah, you know what? If we really look at happiness and our well-being and what we need, okay, we absolutely need our basic needs to be met. We probably need to be looking at reoccurring patterns, what's coming up over and over again subconsciously, and why that's happening. Because staying in those patterns obviously is really upsetting for us. What lights us up, what we enjoy. I think you just said like the kind of gives us that fire in our belly, and maybe I'd link it to that as well in terms of, okay, well, what is actually meaningful to me in life? And when we engage in those things, we start to feel happier, feel more content. And that's really where, because happiness is where I started. I literally started asking myself, as I said at the beginning, what even makes a person happy? If I want to be happier, let me look at all the science that shows what makes us happier, and then ultimately have better relationships and go take risks, go for our dreams and things like that. And I feel like you've actually pinpointed some of those areas really, really nicely. What are you working on at the moment that you're excited to share or would love to share with the listeners?
I would say I'm working on like a new platform. It's a tech platform. Um, I would say it's a sort of we're building an operating system for behavioral change. Because I feel like that's something that's missing in the market. And you know, even if you like, let's say you have like let's just an easy example, like if you go see a doctor, you get prescribed medicines, whatever, and then the doctor might tell you that you need to change certain habits, lifestyle, whatever. um it's really hard for people to actually change the habits and lifestyle. So we're building this platform that's going to be like the operating system for behavior change. It's going to be a marketplace business model. So people like you, like coaches, therapists, clinicians, can use this platform to create behavior change programs for patients and people and people really, so they can successfully change their patterns. So
Wow.
it's not a place therapy,
Yeah.
but it's got to complement everything else that coaches, therapists, and doctors already do. Yeah, you can sign up on joinritually.com. It's
Oh,
exciting because yeah, it's a new platform, and I feel like there's nothing like this in the market at the moment. So it's a little bit nerve-wracking
yeah.
to build something innovative.
I'll put all the links in the description, including how people can find you and follow you. But before we end this episode, is there any kind of lasting message that you would just like to share with anyone that might be struggling today?
I would say, there's timing for everything. So just be patient with yourself and the timing of your life, because nothing is like in a linear pattern. It's what goes up comes down and then goes up again. So it's just a cycle. If you're just going through the down period, then you will go up again. Just be patient.
What
Yeah.
a perfect note to end on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.